All right. Looks like we're live.
We're live?
We're live.
Awesome. Hi, everyone.
So this is the non-beta version, the first of our live at the, living room table conversations, uncensored. So
uncensored. That's the key thing here, is that we're uncensored now.
Yeah.
On the radio, we have to censor ourselves a lot because we can't swear, and we have to make sure that we're careful in how we talk about issues and that kind of thing. But here we just get to...
We could say fuck.
We say fuck. We can say fuck. It's amazing. I love it.
But so our weekly radio show is every Friday at 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. We usually stream it off the Indignants page just like this, or you can listen to CHRW 94.9 FM. They have a live stream as well. You can Google them. On the radio show last week, we talked about Catalonia, and we were going to talk a little bit about Trump and NBC and press freedom, and that sort of thing. But I think we should start off with Catalonia again a little bit, because honestly, I don't think we talked about it enough. Yeah, I mean, that's... Because, we started talking about some of the things, and we've got another guest host today. His name's Boo. Come here.
Yeah.
Come here.
And he doesn't know how to handle us sitting here talking.
Not paying attention to him. So if he just sits, that'll be good. So the one thing that I was talking about that in the comments I had noticed folks wanted more conversation about was the fact that a lot of these big major financial institutions are pulling out of Catalonia.
I actually don't know much about that, to be honest.
Yeah, and for me that seems like it's going to be a dirty play by like the Spanish government, because it's going to force a lot of people to capitulate, basically. It's like if you do this, then your economy and our economy... Yeah, your bank accounts are going to be safe, don't worry, just make sure you vote for us type of thing almost. It almost feels like that. So, I don't know though, I'm not a Catalonian, I don't have any money in a Catalonian bank.
Right, I actually don't have a lot of information about the financial part of it. I can do a search here. Yeah, so... The other thing is, this is a good opportunity perhaps for the Catalonian people to come up with their own, their own banking system. Maybe they could do like cryptocurrency or something like that, some sort of a blockchain type thing. It gives them that opportunity. And you find anything on that? Well, I'm scanning an article here. Yeah, they're saying at least one major bank is relocating, because the separatists, they're saying, are playing at a revolution, so that's why. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, there is one major bank. I don't think I'm pronouncing it right, but Banco Sabadell. That's what I'm reading here. That's and they're relocating their legal headquarters because of this movement and the threats that it poses to, I guess, their security. Raymond Johansson posted in our chat last time we were on the radio a link. Can Spain's economy survive Catalonian secession? So that's a good question. There's a little article that's in here in regards to that. The Catalonian leaders are pushing for a split from Spain. A banned referendum on Sunday is one of the powerhouse of the Spanish economy. So basically, it just goes on to say that this part of Spain is the leader in GDP. Catalonia accounts for 19% of Spain's gross domestic product last year. It's fourth in terms of GDP per capita, averaging 28,000 euros. After Madrid, the northern Basque country, and neighboring Navarra, GDP per capita in Spain is overall 24. So you're going to have a bath. Relax. You're going to have a bath and I'm going to clean your ears. That always works. Yeah. You're going to have a bath. All right, so that's hopefully solved. So yeah, and this goes on to ask further questions. This article about what about big companies? Are big companies going to be pulling out of
Catalonia. So, you know, they talk about a major industrial player here. The agri-food, chemistry, and car manufacturing sectors are all pillars of the Catalonian industry, which are also big logistics hubs. So they're saying here that if these firms pull out, then that could be, you know, devastating for not only Catalonia, but the Spanish economy. Yeah, this is a pickle. So I don't know what...
I mean, the thing about revolution is that you get to redefine what you want in your society, right? And so as much as it sounds like a disaster with, you know, financially and stuff, and for so many different reasons, I mean, ultimately, I feel like this movement could lead to the people of Catalonia just like completely rethinking and rebuilding their society, like at the grassroots level, in a way that is, and that looking very different from what we're used to, as far as like the way that their society works. He's so fussy. Oh my god.
I don't think either of us have taken him out today.
No, he slept in my room for most of the day.
Did he?
But yeah.
Oh. Anyway. Well, you're gonna have to wait at least like a half hour, buddy. Okay.
Go get your leash. Go get your leash, though. Go get your leash. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like revolution, with revolution, you're allowed to, you don't have to play by the standards that have been set for you politically and socially and economically and stuff, because the whole point of a revolution is to redefine these things. So, he actually brought his leash.
Good boy. Come here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so, I mean, you know some folks that are from the region, right?
Yeah.
And you were saying before that they, a lot of folks weren't really on board with separation. But...
Well, it's not necessarily the people that I know, but like in general, like the citizens of Catalonia, like in general, it's a lot of them were actually, well, the polls were saying before voting day that most people were actually not going to vote in favor of independence. But they still wanted to have the referendum for the sake of having the referendum, because they believe in the cause of self-determination. So that's more what this whole thing is about, as far as like the important things, the really important things to take from it. I mean, the whole issue of whether to separate or not separate is separate, in my opinion, from the issue of self-determination and the people getting to decide either way, whether that's staying or whether that's leaving. So, yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, it's like I know some of the pirates in Catalonia, like people in the Catalonian Pirate Party, and like their whole thing, like they did so much work leading up to the referendum and on the day of, and it was really amazing to see, but like their whole cause, their whole focus was on self-determination. It wasn't, they didn't take a stance of like being for or against it. They just believed in the cause of self-determination, and that's a lot of feeling around it, is regardless of where you stand, it's about self-determination. So, but having said that, the issue of independence is obviously a big one in and of itself too, and there's lots of different reasons for or against it. You know, there's so many different perspectives on it. It's not like a black and white, one way is right, the other way is wrong kind of thing. It really depends on who you talk to over there.
But now there seems to be an even bigger push because of the repression and stuff like that.
Well, that's the thing is, like, with all of, if you're following any of this on social media, like I spent so much time on Twitter that day because that's where a lot of the updates were, and you know, just watching the violence from the police in the streets, like beating the shit out of people for going to a polling station and wanting to cast their vote. The police confiscating ballots and ballot boxes, and
state police too.
State police, Spanish state police,
Not
and then there was like the Catalonian police force was also in there trying to protect people, so that they could vote.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the Spanish police were fucking, like, they terrorized everybody. And so many people got hurt. I don't know if anyone died, but a lot of people were seriously injured, and the pictures and the videos were just horrifying. And, all of this because the people wanted to go out and vote in an independence referendum, right? All of that over voting. And considering the polls beforehand of, saying that most people were not going to vote for independence, the Spanish government, and I said this on the radio the other day, but the Spanish government really fucked itself. Because if they had just let it happen peacefully and not tried to stop it, not declared it illegal from the beginning, then the people would have just went out and voted and nothing would have happened because they wouldn't have voted against
maybe
Spain.
Not.
Well, it's just, it would have been unlikely because before all of the repression, I mean, there was repression, leading up to voting day as well. But it wasn't, like, as severe as on voting day. And before voting day, it was looking like, even if it was close, it was looking like the independence thing was not going to be the majority.
Now, they did this back in 2013 too, or something.
2014,
2014, yeah.
And there was a referendum to see if people would want to consider separating, and I don't remember what the result of that was. Actually, I think it was a win, but there wasn't much of a turnout or something like that. There definitely wasn't a full turnout, so there's that. But what ended up happening was they started in 2015. They actually started making a plan for like a formal referendum, and then actually examining the possibility of separating for real and looking at what that would entail, and so that it's been years. It's been an issue for years, and. But again, like if the Spanish government had just let it happen and not tried to like repress the shit out of people, then it would have been fine for them, right? They probably wouldn't be worried about losing Catalonia right now.
Well, who knows? But I mean, they definitely made it worse. They definitely made it worse
because after voting day, it was like, out of all the people who went up to vote, it was like 91% or something voted in favor of independence. So, I mean, just looking at those numbers, like, clearly, the crackdown on voters by the Spanish government played a role in the turnout of the referendum vote. And
so what do you think's going to happen? Like, what's going on now?
Well, on the 9th, the president of Catalonia, if that's even the correct term, because I say that because Catalonia is a semi-autonomous region as it is, so I said president of Catalonia, but I mean, they're still part of Spain, technically, so apologies if that's incorrect to say that, but he apparently, what I was reading is that he signed a declaration of independence, but it's kind of more being used as a tool for negotiating with the Spanish government, and it's not an outright, like, we're independent now. And now the Spanish government is asking, well, have you declared independence or haven't you? So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming weeks and how all of this plays out. But seriously, like, people should really be following this movement, especially people on the left.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that, like, if you're, I feel like especially if you're a lefty, but like if you're a political person, if you're interested in this kind of thing, Catalonia is the place to be following right now, because it's just so fascinating.
And there's a lot of history there too, so
yeah.
So NBC's license won't be revoked over Trump's FCC commissioner. I just popped this up today, New York Times or New York Post.
Explain to me, what is the deal with that? What's going on there?
All right. Basically, Trump was all butthurt over BC. I guess he's a snowflake, and something they said hurt him. I don't really know what it was exactly. Oh, it was some files or something. What the hell was it? I'd have to look it up. Okay, let me read this off here. A Democratic member of the Federal Communications Commission said the federal agency will not revoke a broadcasting license because President Trump is upset over a news outlet's coverage of him. Jessica, I can't pronounce her name, Rosenwarch, one of 5 commissioners on the FCC, is the first to respond to Trump's threat last week to pull NBC's license. Okay, actually there's a link there, so I'm going to go to that. President Trump continued his assault on the fake news media on Wednesday, suggesting it's time to challenge the network's broadcasting licenses. With all the fake news coming out of NBC and the networks, this is Trump saying, at this point, is it appropriate to challenge their license? Bad for the country, he tweeted. His massive came shortly, well, that's bad spelling, after he vehemently denied an NBC News report that asked him to dramatically expand the U.S. nuclear arsenal. So yeah, he was talking about expanding the nuclear arsenal, and they basically just called him on it, and it's just more of the same thing. Trump's just going off on mainstream media.
Of course.
You know, but I mean, this is kind of ironic too, because like a lot of people see him as being either like a fascist or fascist apologetic sort of leader, and you know, eliminating the media or you know, like lessening it is one of the 14 phases or factors of fascism, right? So I mean,
yeah, I mean it's like he loves the media if they're in favor of him. If they make him look good or his people look good, you know.
So in July, Trump said he wanted to expand the nation's nuclear capabilities after seeing data showing the stockpile dwindled over the past 50 years, according to the report. So, yeah, I think we got enough nuclear weapons. I don't know how more nuclear weapons is going to make anything any safer or better for anybody. No. So, yeah, there's that. And I mean, you could probably talk forever about Trump and his shenanigans. The other thing I wanted to talk about is it's Occupy's birthday today.
Really?
You didn't know that?
Well, I knew we were around that time, but I didn't know it was today.
Yeah, so
Occupy Toronto, right?
The worldwide Occupy.
So Occupy Wall Street.
The Occupy Wall Street started a month ago, like 6 years ago, a month ago. It started September 15th. And then the worldwide one was October 15th. So like all the cities, like hundreds of cities.
And then next weekend will be the 6-year anniversary of Occupy London.
Yeah, so that was what, 6-7 days later?
It was October 22nd.
Yeah.
So it'll be a week from today, exactly.
Yeah. So I only spent a couple days and a couple nights in Toronto, and as soon as I heard that stuff was going on back in London, I skated right back to London and joined the party back here. And
yeah, here's how I joined Occupy. So I actually wasn't there on the first day. I was a little shy. I wasn't an activist yet. I didn't know anybody. I was a student. I was attending Western, and a couple friends came up to me one night. This was the Wednesday after Occupy London set up the camp, because I knew it happened, right? Like I knew that a camp had been set up in London that weekend, but I wasn't there for it. And then so it was the Wednesday after, and a couple friends came up to me on my way to class and said, "We're going to the Occupy camp because the police are threatening to go in there tonight." And they're like, "Do you want to come?" And I'm just like, I'm thinking, like, I don't know, like, should I go to my class? Should I skip my class? I ended up skipping my class and going to the Occupy camp, and I spent a few hours there. I remember David Rovics was supposed to play a show at Western that night, and everybody was at the Occupy camp, so nobody showed up to his event, and he ended up coming down to the Occupy camp, and he played a show for everybody there, and that was really cool. That was my first time going, and I got to meet a bunch of cool people. I think I met you that night, probably. Yeah. And yeah, that I went there. I spent a few hours. I didn't stay the night, but I had a fucking great time. I had a fucking amazing time. And that was after that, at that point, from then on, that was the only place I wanted to be, was at the Occupy camp. And I went back every fucking day Did you
ever set up a tent there?
No, I didn't set up a tent because I was really busy with school a lot, and I also didn't have a tent. And I didn't know anybody, so I wasn't going to ask if I could share a tent with anybody, right? You know, I at the end of the day, I needed to go home and do homework and be close to school, right? So I didn't end up setting up a tent there, but I was there every single fucking day. And, you know, it was just amazing. It was such an incredible experience. And especially being a brand new activist, with that being my first real experience with activism, it was just, yeah, it was unforgettable. And it's something that is going to stay with me my whole life. The Occupy movement is a key life-changing event for me, right? I was about 20 years old, and that was my first real experience as an activist, and I will never forget it. And no matter what I do with my life from here on out, I will always go back to Occupy and the influence that it had on me and how it changed me and made me who I am.
Yeah.
You know? So people like to shit on Occupy. That's the thing. People like to look back and they like to shit on the Occupy movement and talk about how terrible it was and all the problems.
There were some bad things.
And
sure.
yes, absolutely. Yeah. There's lots of problems there. Don't get me wrong. It was by no means a perfect movement. Our camp certainly had a lot of issues. Do you mind if I have a smoke?
No, go for
okay. Yeah, our camp had a lot of fucking problems, but at the end of the day, we were a community and we supported each other, and we all hung out together 24/7. And even after the camp got shut down, I remember we still did our thing. We still went back there for our General Assembly meetings. And eventually it got really, really cold out.
Yeah.
And, Canadian winters. And we started meeting at the library.
Yeah, which was good. And
which was good too.
We had
a warm place.
A whole year afterwards almost. Yeah, I mean, I spent... So we had heard about the Toronto thing happening, and I had hooked up with some folks from Toronto prior to the thing happening and sort of helped out with some social media stuff and with the Facebook page and stuff like that. And there was people here in London that were saying, well, it's not going to fly in London. It's just not going to fly. So we just got to put all our eggs in the Toronto basket. And I mean, I was really disappointed, but whatever, I was really excited at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went to Toronto and... only stayed there for a few days and a few nights. Slept in the same tent with 3 guys and a girl, all in the same tent, which was really small. It was like a 2-person tent, and it was wet, and it was really miserable.
Yeah.
I only slept a few nights there though, and then I heard the Occupy London thing was going on and flipped back to London. But just within the short period of time that I was in Toronto, it profoundly affected me too, because I had done activism with Food Not Bombs prior, but I really was disconnected when it came to things like mental health and poverty. Honestly, I feel like I was a really privileged person, still am, and I just couldn't identify, or I couldn't see that these things were as big of an issue as it was. And being in Occupy Toronto, I got to meet so many different people from so many different lifestyles and socioeconomic, everything. And I learned an awful lot during those few days that I was there.
Yeah.
And then coming back to London and staying in London, it was an amazing experience, with my own local community, because these are our people. I got to meet you.
Yep.
And like 6 years later, you're still my roommate.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. You're my best friend.
Yeah.
You're
my bro. You're my bro.
But yeah, it changed me profoundly. Like I had, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. Honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Like
they're like the whole sleeping in the tent thing. Like when I was in Toronto, our tent was on a bit of a hill like this, and it was raining constantly. And it was like, so my head was on an angle sleeping down, and it was raining out constantly. The tent was wet inside, and the hippies were drumming in the gazebo.
The drum circle.
In the middle of the park till like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I felt like it was almost like Guantanamo. I'm not gonna say it's an equivalent, but it
don't say that.
It felt like torture.
Just don't say that.
It felt like torture.
No. Don't say that. It was inconvenient. It was uncomfortable.
It was hellish for a few days until we actually had a GA and said that the drumming thing has to stop in the middle of the park.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was brutal.
And then the city coming down on us with bylaws and shit here in London, like trying to tell us that we couldn't stay in the park because of bylaws.
Yeah. And then, I mean, most of the time when we were having general assemblies, we were talking more about like issues with the camp than we were actually talking about issues in general.
Yeah.
Right? So we'd have these general assemblies and people would come that weren't really staying at the park, and we'd be talking about, well, what are we going to be doing for the latrine or food or fuel for a generator or all these different things. And a lot of folks became kind of peeved off that we weren't actually talking about the bigger issues, right?
Yeah.
So we broke the GA up into like 2 different parts. An earlier day GA where we talked about how we're going to take care of stuff in the park, and then a later GA where we talked about general issues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that worked.
I remember that.
Yep.
The only thing is, like, I missed the good GAs a lot, because the ones where you actually talked about the political stuff, I missed those a lot because I was in class, but I just remember the GAs in the evenings, the ones dealing with, like, park issues or whatever. That was always interesting. Because it was just, you know, and this is one of the things, it was people arguing and personalities clashing, and, you know, these things were not easy, and we had this vision, and we were part of this movement, and you know, we felt really good about that, but at the same time, like, it was not without difficulty, because we had a lot of, like, logistical things to worry about too, like, you know, who's gonna clean up the fucking park every day, and, you know, what happens when people start fighting with each other, and you know, dealing with the everyday stuff that comes with living with people, because that's what it was. Like, everybody was living together at that camp, or most people, you know.
Yeah, we did a pretty good job, though.
Yeah. I mean, and we learned a lot from that.
And I think it was actually stronger after the camp broke down.
Well, yeah, because like at that point...
For us, at least here in London, I think, but there was a lot of other occupies that shit just fell apart as soon as it broke down. But for us, I think, we got stronger afterwards, and we started doing more actions and stuff. We didn't have to worry about all the park issues anymore. So yeah, exactly. And it just the meetings that we had became more about like actions and politics and processes and
like the stuff that we were actually interested in. So.
Do you remember we actually used to have a committee for one person?
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that here, though.
No, but we would actually, if we had a problem with a person, we would try to deal with that person rather than trying to like excommunicate them or something like that. We would actually engage and try to work with people, you know, and it was pretty successful and pretty interesting.
Why am I using 2 hands to
I
smoke?
No
I'm just
idea.
like switching hands. But yeah, no, we did have unique ways of dealing with stuff.
But at the same time, there was a lot of like trauma lot of hardship, a lot of drama that happened, and that some of those things either was way out of people. Like, I think the one thing that was out of our grasp was a lot of the mental illness issues that we really were incapable of handling.
Well, yeah, and like there was some issues with addictions and stuff too.
Yep.
And it's like a lot of stuff that we weren't really qualified to deal with properly, and it's like all we could do was just, I guess, support people and try not to let things blow up.
Yeah, and I mean, we had some successes and I think some failures at it. But.
Yeah, and I mean, it really presents a lot of important questions for, like, any kind of revolutionary movement, or any, if we're thinking about alternative societies and stuff, and alternatives to capitalism, and just on a practical level, the challenges that come with that, and the things, like, the things that are going to come up, and just the reality of trying to build something new and how difficult that can really be. We tend to romanticize these things and talk about how, talk about the perfect revolution or the perfect movement, and it's just, I mean, it's great. It's good to have that, like, those visions of alternatives to society and the changes that we can make when we come together in a movement like Occupy. But at the same time, we really have to move away, I think, from, like, the romanticizing of these things and thinking that it's going to come without challenges and to think that there's only one way of doing it too, and only one outcome, right?
A lot of people say it was a failure.
I don't think it was a failure.
See, I personally think that after day one, it was a success. Like, if everything was ripped down the next day.
The fact that it happened at all.
Yeah. The fact that you actually had people in a park, in the commons, sitting and talking about the issues of the day, whereas before they weren't. Right?
Yeah.
Or maybe some of them were doing it online, but nobody was, like, this was a real community.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So the people could share ideas and talk, and and there was a variety of different people there, different ideas. There were socialists, there were communists, there were anarchists, there were libertarians, and then you had a few right-wing folks that were in there trolling around and stuff like that. But you had a good mixture of people, and everybody was, like, feeding into that pot.
Yep.
So I think that was a glorious thing. I don't know if we'll ever see anything like that again.
I'm sure we'll see better things and similar
so.
things.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, like, I don't think that's the last big movement.
No, I don't think it's going to be, but I think something like that where, like, people take over the commons and hold it for a long
Well, right.
period of
We have
time.
to keep in mind is that Occupy is a tactic. I mean, it's the name of a movement too. But occupying, like, to occupy is a tactic, right?
Yep.
And there's going to be many more occupations, no doubt. So.
So yeah, so to all the Occupy folks that are out there, anybody that was involved in the movement.
I mean, I think now that you say that, I think, we actually lost somebody from that we knew in Occupy recently.
Yeah. Danny. Yeah. So for folks that don't know, we had a person that was in our Occupy
Danny
movement.
Bayless was his name.
Yeah.
And he passed away, was it last week?
Last week. He OD'd.
Yeah. And he was a key figure in the Occupy movement for a long time.
Yep.
He was at the camp all the time.
Definitely a key character.
Yeah.
Sure.
And he was a funny guy, man. He was fucking hilarious. I mean, he was a good person, and
I think with some of these people, as soon as Occupy basically ended, though, that a lot of these folks, this was their only place of community, right?
Well,
and,
yeah.
And a lot of the reasons why they came, it wasn't necessarily because of the politics. I think a lot of it had to do with, like, being part of a community, right? And as soon as that community disbanded, You know, like, I don't know, the 8 months after the camp closed and we stopped really having our meetings or whatever, a lot of folks felt like they didn't have a family or they didn't have connections anymore. And that must have been really hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know? Because the one thing that it did do is it bridged a lot of gaps between people and it brought a lot of people together.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about all the homeless people that stayed there.
Yep.
You know, there was so many people who were homeless in the community who found a home at Occupy.
Hot meals, a community.
Yeah, they were eating 3 times a day. They were, you know, they had people to talk to.
They felt safe.
Yeah. They had people who would have their backs if the cops came around to harass them and shit. Like, they had safe places to use substances if they needed to. I mean, that was just a practical thing that we needed at that camp, and you know, was like for like a safe place for people who are using and who are struggling with mental illnesses and addictions. And you know, a lot of those people, it's like they get harassed by the police all the time, and they're not safe anywhere that they go.
Like,
and you know, they were able to find a home and occupy.
Yeah.
And then when the camp got taken down, it's like, where did they go? A lot of them we never saw again.
Yeah, that's sad. I mean, there were groups that were formed afterwards and stuff, but I mean, probably with like a lot of the different occupies after the camps broke down and stuff, there was a breakdown in the community. And, you know, I feel really bad for the people that lost touch with everybody else within those communities.
Yeah.
The one thing that I think that was the most successful thing about it was, one of the most successful was it planted the seed of horizontal democracy with a lot of people. Like the process of general assemblies, of participatory democracy, of being able to, you know, cast a vote equally with everybody else. You know, this leaderless movement where, you know, we might get a spokesperson or somebody representing us, but like they're not a leader, you know, empowered a lot of people, right? And I think that people recognize that there's a different way that we can do our politics, that we can organize our communities, than the one that we've been told we have to do all the time. Right?
Yeah, which is representative democracy.
Yeah, and it shined a light more on you know, less, like, sure, individuality is extremely important and one of the most important things to me, but it also showed that community is really important. One of the things that capitalism doesn't do is show that community is
important, and that we're all mutually we're all connected to each other, and our well-being is like dependent on everyone else's well-being. And yeah, and I mean, you really need that for individuality to truly thrive as well. You know, I feel like this whole like individuality versus communalism or whatever, like I feel like they just kind of go hand in hand, and we tend to separate them as if they're two different things and not compatible, and that it's a constant battle between the two. But I don't really see it that way at all. I feel like both are equally as important, and you can't really have like good versions of either one without the other.
So what's your happiest moment?
Happiest moment in Occupy? That's a difficult question, because there were so many happy moments in Occupy. I'd have to think about that.
How about your worst? No, I don't want to go there.
Worst? I can't think of that either. I don't actually know. Like, I honestly don't know what my best and worst memories from Occupy would be.
Well, I mean, there were some dramas that happened in the camp.
Yeah, it's not like interpersonal drama, but like, that's nothing.
I think the best thing for me was having some people, I mean, just have epiphanies during, you know, assemblies or talks or something, and say, hey, I kind of get what this is all about and stuff like that, and, you know, I'm finally understanding some of these things. And personally for me, it helped me understand a hell of a lot of things that I really was vague on as well. So I think that's probably what benefited me the most. Yep,
I would agree. I'd say it's the same kind of thing for me, is just like learning all the time. Yeah. Learning so much. yeah, I mean, it was a constant learning experience. Not only about politics, but again, it was, you know, life in general. Like, I feel like it was, you know, a course in the University of Life or some shit like that. You know what I mean?
You know, I don't know how you did it. Like, I'm in school right now, and I don't know how I would be.
Yeah, I was a fucking
going
student,
to school
man.
and doing
Like,
all that.
I was a fucking student while that was happening, and I managed to get through my fucking classes, and I did all my fucking homework, and I went to the fucking Occupy.
I don't know how the fuck you did it.
I don't know how the fuck I fucking did it either.
You like this, don't you?
I fucking love this. You can't tell. Yeah. But yeah, no, I actually, I fucking did it somehow. It was hard though. Like, that was one of my struggles during that time, was the fact that I was a student and I had to put school first, right? So sometimes, I mean, a lot of the time it meant, you know, going home when I didn't want to go home because I had an essay due the next day. Or not going to a meeting that I wanted to go to because I had class, or, you know, stuff like that.
Should be rating your essays the night before, Bailey.
I wrote all my fucking essays the night before, and I did fucking fantastic.
I do a lot of them. Well, I start a little early, but I always finish them right at the deadline for some reason. So.
Yeah.
Because I bug Bailey half the time to, like, check it for grammar and spelling and...
Yeah, I'm so glad I'm not in school anymore. But it was crazy. It was, yeah, I mean, a lot of my classes, though, like, with what I was taking... It fit really well with what I was doing. And some of my professors also encouraged me to go to the Occupy camp too. Like, they actually, you know, when I skipped their classes a couple times to go to Occupy, and
they were cool with it.
And they understood. They're just like, no, go. You should be there. If you're part of that, then you should go and be there and just take that experience and make sure that you incorporate it into, like, this writing assignment or whatever. So, like, my professors were really helpful with that. They completely supported me skipping their classes to go to Occupy stuff. Which, you know, you don't get that very often with, you know, with school.
No.
You know, they say, no, school has to come first. And my profs were like, no, the movement comes first. Just write about the movement in class. Talk about it in class. So that was pretty cool. I was gonna say something else, but I'm trying to remember what it was. I kind of forgot.
It was about Occupy.
It was about Occupy, yeah. Fuck, I don't remember. I don't remember what I was gonna say, but it was something about Occupy. That was... Go ahead.
I liked it. I think, you know, I mean, I wish I would have spent more time... Like, I really wanted to do more media stuff while I was there.
Yeah.
But I got sucked into, like, the whole process. Like, I wanted to spend 90% of my time, like, interviewing people, talking, taking photography, like, you know, like, doing all that, like, documenting it. And I ended up dropping the camera for 90% of the time and, like, helping out.
Yeah.
And doing things. And... part of me is like, I wish I would have done more, but you know what? I wouldn't have learned, like you're saying, as much as I learned if I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it's built great networks also afterwards. Like, I'm good friends with, you know, many people in the area and even in Toronto, and then internationally too. Like, many of us have hooked up with other people that were involved in the Occupy movement, and you know, we've actually worked together after that going forward, and I've seen some of these groups of people work on things like the Rolling Jubilee, Occupy Sandy, and a whole bunch of different, like, mega projects that have really proven to be great and beneficial. So yeah,
that's the thing, is Occupy was just the beginning for a lot of us. Like, for me, it was just the beginning. Like, through Occupy, I got involved in Food Not Bombs, and then, you know, ended up, we went to Montreal a bunch of times for, like, when the Quebec student strike was happening. And, you know,
learned an awful lot there.
Yeah, like, we did that. We got involved in, what was that factory that fucking closed?
Oh, the Caterpillar.
Yeah.
They made trains, right? And then they moved down to the States.
Yeah, we had a like...
There was a lockout, so there was a factory in London
Yeah.
that wanted, folks were getting like $30 an hour. They were going to move the factory down to the States and pay people $15 an hour. So they told the folks up here, take a pay cut by half, no benefits. And the folks just said,
We're like, fuck you.
we can't do that, right? Like we can't go down to that. And so they locked out the workers. And this is just after Occupy ended. And we had a bunch of our tents still, and some of our whole network was still there basically.
Yeah.
And we went out and helped the union folks. We put up a tent, we gave them Wi-Fi, we brought some like heating stuff, and we basically occupied the front gates of the factory.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
there's a lot of good union ties too, like a lot of
it's like the connection between the local activists and the local labor movement who weren't necessarily activists at that time. Like they weren't going out to all of our stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, like they became more active in the community too.
Yeah. Big shout out to the London Labour Council.
They're fucking awesome.
Great group of folks, and the
folks
Council Canadians.
Yeah.
The best liberal folks I can ever say I know, because they're also kind of radical and. Yeah.
They're more radical than you give them credit for.
They are,
dude. Like
they are.
They're
They just don't look it.
Oh come on.
Well, they don't. They look like harmless older people, most of them. So I'm generalizing, but they do. Okay, but they're really, really radical. They are. They are. I love you. So yeah, I guess that's probably it for the show.
Do we have anything else? Do we have anything else to talk about? I mean, yeah. So happy birthday, Occupy.
Yeah, and normally we're gonna have a couple other people on the show. Lily usually comes on, and Will. Both of them couldn't make it today, and this is our first official show. We did a beta last time that, it was just sort of checking out the lighting, seeing what we need.
Yeah.
We're going to do one of these every week, every Sunday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's going to coincide with our radio show, which is Friday.
Yeah.
And if we can't really talk about everything in the half hour on the radio show,
We'll just talk about it here.
we'll talk about it here. And if we feel like swearing, we'll swear here.
Fuck yeah.
And
Fucking fuck. Yeah. Sorry.
wow. And we'll probably have we'll bring in guests on Skype and call-ins, but this will be a little more of an open forum, and we really want participation from people that are watching.
Yeah.
So,
I was trying to watch the chat here, but I look so chubby on the stream. But I'm trying to watch. Is there any chatting going on? I can't see who's.
No, I just said a few people joined, but nobody's actually.
Yeah,
asked the
I'm
question.
seeing, and there's over 100 views already.
Yeah.
So
if you do
people have been watching.
Yeah, if you guys have a question or comment, or don't agree with what we're saying, or have a problem, or have a different opinion, or you want to, post something that we should cite or something like that, pop it up here. So what our idea for doing this particular version of, we got our radio show, it's at the radio station, it is what it is. This thing here, what we eventually want to do with it is think Super Deluxe meets Joe Rogan minus the conspiracy theory.
Well, see, this really came out of you and I and our friends, and how many times we've sat around in this living room high and having awesome political discussions and thinking, why the fuck don't we have this recorded?
Yeah, because it's some good talk.
Yeah.
Right?
So, so that's kind of what this came out of.
Yeah.
And so this is our uncensored, don't give a fuck, we say what we want.
At some point we might do an official podcast too, but I mean at this point right now I'm not really
I like this so much better.
Yeah, I like live because you don't edit it. You got to put a lot of work into that stuff, and I edit enough videos and stuff that I don't.
Yeah.
If we can get a producer, we got one producer to help out with a little bit of stuff. We're probably going to need a couple more people that want to help out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you got some skills and you're kind of local, send us a message, because we would love to have other people helping out with this. At some point, we're also going to start a Patreon. We're going to get our website back up and running. We're going to need more writers and stuff like that. So this is basically the resurgence of
the Indignants.
Indignants.
We were super active like years ago. Like we had multiple people writing all the time, and we would actually like travel to go to events and cover the event, and you know, like we actually functioned like a media collective. And then we kind of, you know, you started school. And,
like 2012 we started. Well, 11 I started it, but then in 12 like you came on.
It was really active.
2012,
2013.
Yeah, and then we did a lot of coverage in London, and then we'd all travel together to Toronto and do like a half day there, and then travel back home, and go to Montreal. You know what I mean?
And then we just got a little quiet. I think we just got busy with life stuff. You know, you with school, me with work, and you know, so we kind of dropped off for a little while there. But now we're trying to bring this back, and it's, you know, it doesn't have to be the same as it was before. It's gonna develop into what it develops into now. And you know, we have our radio show, we have this now, and whatever else we end up doing, cool. And we'll just stay open-minded and do what we can and not put pressure on ourselves or anybody else. And
well, I think it's important too to have this sort of thing, because I mean, I'm a big YouTube fan. You've seen that, and I see a plethora of these right-wing, you know, either hardcore right-wing or right-wing apologist sort of YouTube or podcasting things. And I don't see all
You're
that
really
much.
Obsessed with that particular group.
Which group?
Like Tim Pool and
I watch him every day. I watch him every day.
Yeah. Well, that's my point. Is like you're really.
But there's things about Tim that I like. I gotta say, there's things about Tim that I like, right? But there's things that I don't like.
Yeah.
Also, you know what I mean? I like the fact that he's going out there and doing it. And
so is it the moderates that bother you so much? Like it's because like the people who don't really define themselves as left or right.
But see, if that's a tough one.
Yeah, like I'm just curious. Like, what is it in particular that
for
bothers
example,
you so
for
much
Tim,
about
Tim,
moderates?
Who I watch. I watch your videos every day, Tim. But you do lean towards the crowd that supports you the most, which is typically the
right wingers,
the alt-right,
because they talk
sort
shit
of
about Antifa because he criticizes Antifa.
Right, and I do see an unbalance in your critique and your analysis.
It's definitely unbalanced for sure.
Yeah, so this is why I would put him over onto that. But I think it's important to watch these things and know what's going on, so that you can counter a lot of these things in discussions and dialogue and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, like I also don't think it's fair to like say that they're all Nazi sympathizers either. I'm not saying you're saying that either. No. I'm just saying that like I have seen that where people are like, oh, you know, these people are all Nazis, and then you actually look at what they're doing and it's like, okay, yeah, they're unbalanced in what they're saying. They're definitely like, they could be more critical of the far right in the way that they're covering events or whatever, because they tend to focus the criticism on the left, right? On Antifa. And it's like, you know, healthy criticism is good of anything. Nothing, nobody is immune to criticism. But yeah, there is an imbalance.
Well, that's one thing the left is really bad with, I think, too, is just critiquing itself. Like it really.
Well, I mean, we have to understand like healthy criticism versus like just douchebaggy criticism, I guess. Like and what that looks like, because I mean, yeah, like we should be critical of ourselves and we should be open to suggestions and ideas about like what we could be doing better and because I mean part of it, I mean on one hand there's people who say like our public perception doesn't matter. But at the same time, yeah, it kind of does if you want to build a movement, right? If you want to build like a global movement, if you want people to join your side against the fascists, then like you have to do your part to appeal to those people, or else they're not going to want anything to do with you. And that's just reality. Like I'm not saying it's necessarily like good or it's fair or I like it. I'm not saying that at all because I don't, right? But it's just the reality of the matter is, like, if we want this movement, if we want our movement to grow, we have to be open to constructive criticism, and we have to be open to the idea that, like, maybe we don't do everything the right way all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's all it is, really. Like, I'm not saying we should compromise our principles or we should back down on anything. Not at all. Don't fucking back down on shit. Don't. But it's, you know, it's good to at least understand.
Yeah, and change and grow and learn.
And just be open-minded, right? Just be open and don't necessarily think that everybody's against you because they're questioning you, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people are just genuinely curious and they just want to know.
And the other thing too is there's people in different places. Like if I go back into, like, my activism kind of started around the G20, mm-hmm. right? And I was a libertarian back then. Sorry, folks.
Hey, I don't.
And I just that experience there, with the group of people from London that I knew and stuff, helped me further research my own personal ideology and the way that I look at the world.
Yeah.
Right? And I got even more involved with, like, Food Not Bombs and people in the community and stuff like that. And
yeah. Short
time afterwards, my whole worldview kind of shifted a little bit. Like, I still, you know, I think some of those libertarian values are still
I'm
there,
very much a
right?
social and cultural libertarian. Like, I don't even care. People say, like, libertarian is a bad word. Like, I'm like, economically, I'm not.
No.
Like, I'm not like,
no.
Yeah, free market, yeah, capitalism. That's not me at all. It's the opposite. But, like, socially and culturally, like, I totally consider myself a social libertarian, cultural libertarian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, absolutely. And before you fucking jump on me over it, fucking look it up and see what it means. And, you know, like, I'm not a fucking, like, I'm just not a fucking authoritarian, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, my point was...
And I think most of us are, like, we, you know, even if you don't want to call yourself a social libertarian or whatever, because you don't like that word, then you probably are one if you're an anarchist anyway. Like,
yeah. So yeah, I mean, it helped shape me, right? So, mm-hmm. you know, and and you learn always, right? Like, and that's the thing too, like, if you're having discussions and conversations with people, and I mean, you just can't expect everybody to think the same way.
Well, this is the thing with, another thing to keep in mind is, like, you know, a lot of radicals on the left like to criticize liberals for being liberal, and they like to, you know, liberals are the worst. And that's, like, in my opinion, no. That's fucking stupid. Like, you actually think liberals are worse than, like, the fucking hardcore conservatives out there? No, that's not fucking true, and you know it. Like the fucking radicalism that we know and love and identify with, that came from liberalism. That came from classical liberalism. It, like, our perspective, like, the perspectives that we have, you know, as far leftists, would not fucking exist if it wasn't for the classical liberals many years ago.
I think that in combination with the radical folks, was
But that's what I'm saying, is that the radical shit came from the classical liberalism. Like, you had to be a classical liberal before you could progress into a radical. Like, radicalism, right. As we understand it, would not be a thing if it didn't stem from the classical liberals, right?
Yep.
That's just a fact. Like, you know, do your fucking research if you don't think I'm right. But I have researched this, and it's the truth. And if you think being a classical liberal is the worst fucking thing in the world, like, I don't know where your priorities are. Like,
I think anymore now people are just, I think it's the fence sitting.
Right,
person,
but
right?
I don't think that's the same thing necessarily.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, fence sitting is one thing, but I think that identifying as a classical liberal, or just a liberal, or having liberal values, like, I feel like that's something else. Like, you can be what we consider a liberal and not be a fence sitter. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people who are in the liberal camp who I agree with a lot of our viewpoints and stuff and ideas, and they value us and our role and everything. They're just not in the same political camp, and I don't think that not being in the same political camp is good enough of a reason to shit all over somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have actual fucking enemies, and that's the fascists. You know, they're building themselves up, and here we are, like, fucking whining about people who aren't anarchists. They're not anarchist enough for us. They're not radical enough for us, so we won't work with them. And yet the fucking far right can go out and all unite and work together and fucking, you know...
Or try to.
And look at, you know, get fucking Trump elected. And, you know what I mean? Like, it's... Like, we're fucking losing because we're so fucking petty about our shit. And the fact that we, you know, we're so, like...
I think we're winning, but I think that we've got a lot of weakness still, which is something that's never changed that we need to address as a group. At the same time, I see the right. It was going good. Charlottesville happened. That was their that was their big demise. Now they're trying to recoup, right?
Yeah.
And gather back and try to rebrand a little bit and stuff. So I think right now we're sitting in a good place overall, and we're winning this part of it. But I also see, like, I think there was a European country that just had an election that, like, the far right group got a bunch of seats. I can't remember the name of the country.
Netherlands?
It was the Netherlands, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so you see that Golden Dawn.
Oh, also
Greece.
Germany, the
so
alternative for Deutschland.
This is something we really need to pay attention to, right? Like, you know, that we're losing that, right? Like, you got Donald Trump, you got all these, you know, far right groups in Europe and stuff like that. You know, who knows what's going to happen in the next election here in Canada. So.
Well, yeah, exactly. And again, just to clarify, like, me saying that we shouldn't be shitty to liberals because they're liberals doesn't mean we should, like, change our viewpoints and that we should try and be more like them or back down on any of the shit we stand for. Not at all. I'm not saying we should do less of what we do because we should appeal to them. No, all I'm saying with that is, like, let's like, try and work with people who could be potential allies. Like, we have to be able to find allies in other political circles and work on common ground. And also it's an opportunity. Like, you know, you could, you know, if you meet some people who, like, you know, don't necessarily see everything the same way that you do, but they're on your side, you know, like, that's an opportunity. Like, get to know them better, let them get to know you better, talk, exchange ideas, and who knows, you may even bring them over to your camp someday, you know what I mean? But you're not going to do that if you're just like, nope, not radical enough for me. Like, that's not gonna win people over. And I know why, I understand why it's tempting to do that, but it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing.
So let's wrap this up. It's been 1 hour and 8 minutes.
Yeah. I'm curious about, like, there's no comments or anything. I mean, I was here trying to monitor the chat, but it doesn't look like there's even a chat.
That's okay. It'll change.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is one of the first times.
Yeah. So my vision for this, by the way, folks, is we're going to get a mixing board, a couple of different cameras. We have a person that's going to operate everything, and we'll have some good mics, some good audio, and we want to feed the comments right into the video feed too, so if folks are talking, we'll actually see the comments coming up live and we can comment on them as well. We're looking for a really interactive experience.
Yeah, that's the thing, is, like, you know, that's why I was curious with the chat, because we could look at the chat and see who's saying what and then comment on it and, like, talk to you guys while we're doing this.
Yeah. So if you're watching this afterwards and you have a comment, put it down, because it'll log in the time. And maybe on the radio show we'll take a couple minutes and we'll float through and see if there's any comments on there that we can address, or next week on the show. Yeah. So
my glasses are at a weird angle.
You're a weird angle.
They're fucking broken.
All right, so catch us on the Indignants Facebook page, CHRW Friday at
1:30 p.m. CHRWradio.ca. And next Sunday as well.
Come here.
Come on.
Come here.
Come on.
Say goodbye. Come here. Up. There you go.
Say bye. Thanks for listening, guys.
All right, time to kill it.